Hey everybody, welcome to the week in Wargaming for December 4th, 2022. How are you out there in internet land? I hope you guys have had a great week. And I'm here to answer some questions, hang out, and talk the week in Wargaming. So, as usual, I will kick us off with whatever has been going on with me, and then I'll take some questions from you, and we'll see what's up. I hope you guys can hear me okay, and if you can't, just tell me in the chat once again if I've managed to screw something up. But I think I might have this audio thing kind of figured. I don't know. It's been 2 weeks of recording podcasts and stuff now. I have a proper mic. I have a little pop guard, so I can't go pop, 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 and make you guys want to kill yourselves. Everything seems to be going okay. I even seem to have the gain on the microphone doing all right. So let's jump in and talk about what's been going on with me this week. Well, we launched Tactical Awareness, the Infinity podcast, on Monday. And it went really well. We got a whole bunch of really cool feedback, both on Discord, on Patreon, on Facebook, and where else? On the actual Spotify thing, you can ask a question and people can give you answers. So I don't know, whatever. Why are you guys all so handsome? Whatever it is you want to ask. And get really good feedback. And so we went into it knowing here's the three of us. Owen's getting back into it. I've been playing for the whole time. Dan's just starting out. There's something cool there. What could we all make together? And so the first one, luckily, literally the day before, we had this FAQ drop. And so we had this really topical, timely thing to discuss and give us a format. But you guys have watched this show, and you know that if you give me an excuse, I will just fly in a direction into infinity and talk about nothing. I'm a infinite episode of Seinfeld, basically going on until the end of time, if you let me. So we needed a form, a structure. We need shout outs and a structure and stuff. And so that feedback is super useful and gave us that outside perspective I think we needed of hey, so this is what so far is really interesting about the three of you and the way you all talk together. Wouldn't this be cool? And we kind of hammered that out into a format. So I'm really proud of this first episode, this first season. And it's going to I keep clearing my throat. Sorry. I should have done that beforehand. But I'm really proud of this first episode of this first season, because I think we have a really clear vision for it. I think it's going to kind of be really good to call back to. It's gonna be something that people can actually watch again, or listen to again, and we can call back to in future seasons. Because I think the time, we only have one chance where everyone's brains are where they are right now with exactly what's going on. And getting back into it, Dan on this journey of learning, and me trying to help facilitate that and stuff too at a distance, to capture sort of where everyone's at. And I think that's gonna be really useful. So I'm excited for Monday, tomorrow, I guess, when the next one goes live, because I think we've kind of started on a path of something that's gonna be really useful and cool, and I hope you guys like it too. So that ate up a bunch of my time. I finished the Battle of Osgiliath 2-player starter set, which is 50 models. I forgot how much I love painting the Middle-earth strategy battle game miniatures, because it's almost like painting historicals, right? They're all very true to scale. You get tons of them on the frame. They're really relaxing to paint. You're doing kind of natural sort of paint schemes and color schemes and stuff too. It's not too fantastical. And yeah, the models are just super nice, and the game's great. I forgot how much I like that game too. And the new scenery is amazing. So I hammered the rest of the Oryx Penny Gothmog. Filmed the last episode, which will go up this weekend. Not the one that came out yesterday, but the next Saturday, which is the 4th episode covering cavalry. And I think I'm really happy with that How to Play series. It was really good. It was fun to do. It was for a game I really like and I'm really fond of. The miniature painting was super fun. I dug through all my boxes of crap. It's getting embarrassing how I could just access. I was like, hey, I wonder if I have some Gondor stuff. And I can just go, oh, here's a box of Knights of Gondor. I don't even know why I have this or when I bought it, but apparently I did. I found a Boromir with the banner. I found another Madril who's in metal, the original Madril. I found some banners, some captains, and I found 15 Guardians of the Fountain card. I don't know why I have 15 Guardians of the Fountain card and some Fiefdoms guys too. So I have enough to like cobble together like a 600 point list, which is kind of like a standard-ish game size for Middle Earth for Gondor. But I didn't have any Mordor stuff, so I don't have to feel too embarrassed. Like I can dig around and try and find some new Mordor stuff, or maybe paint the new Mordor Battle Force for that too. So yeah, it's gonna be a interesting like getting back into that game. I hope I get to see some Middle Earth strategy battle games. I know Les played it for a long time. I could probably coax him back into playing it maybe. I gave the Isengard Mordor. I gave something to Rohan. I gave Rohan, I think. Yeah, I gave the Rohan 2-player shirt to Nick. And I really want Nick to try the game because I think he'd really like it too. Jay obviously plays Mordor, so I need to finish my Gondor to play Jay. Yeah, there's a ton of like stuff we can work on, and I'm excited to play too. So the sound worked the first time. Tim says, "Are we sure this is actually Ash?" It might not be. You can see, I mean, that's the benefit of me having like my office set up here in my little sunroom now, is that I can just leave it set up, which means I'm not like fucking with it every single time. That was the problem, was I think I had to like tear it down and put it up, and sometimes I'd plug in like a different mic, or I'd like change my settings, and now it's just plugged in, like it's just ready to go, and I can just pick it up and do it whenever I want. And also doing the podcast has really helped me with audio stuff too, just because like I've had to teach it's funny how like I really, I think, thrive under not knowing how to do something, because I will like hyper fixate on it for a minute and then figure out what the best sort of like methodology to get it done is, and getting the audio right was a big deal for me. Even just like the camera and like the lighting and stuff like that too, trying to get all that stuff right and more simple, and not like realizing that the world, like there's tons of stuff you can just if you want to do this, you can just go to Staples and like literally for like $150 have everything you need to do like a live stream like this. Between like the Yeti podcasting mics they have there now, and like I have like a Logi 1080p HD webcam now, but it's just like a tiny little separate guy, so I can move it around the room and just like put it where I need it. It's so much easier, because I was trying to like channel audio or video through like a very expensive camera that I used to record battle reports, and I was, I don't need to do that. Like I can get the exact same, I get a better picture and more mobility and more posability and stuff out of like one of these little webcams. So just I stopped basically being in my own way, and that seems to have helped a whole bunch. Like with basically everything in life, if you stop being in your own way, you will find that life becomes way easier. And last but not least, I started a little indie game project. I love these. These are my my favorite brand of notebook, and I can't remember who makes them, and it's making me sad. I get them at the book outlet, but they're these little black notebooks, and I think they're made by some company called M, like a red square. But I started writing again last night too, which I've been having a hard time doing lately. I haven't been able to focus, so it's been nice. Oh my gosh, hang on. I think it's my coffee this morning, because I put cream in my coffee. I normally put in milk, and it's making me like make my throat need to be cleared. So drink more of it, Ash, you idiot. What am I doing? All right, let's say hi everybody in the chat. And you guys start firing away some questions if you have any. And we'll say what's up. Pointy-eared bow twanger is here. Pointy-eared bow twanger. Some of the internet names I literally can't read in the chat, but that one I can, and it made me happy. So thank you for the smile. Chase is here. Sweet. Tim Edwards is here. Mike Egan's here. BK says morning from Chicago. Paul's Paint Shed says hello all. Hopefully you'll help me through the next hour of work. That's the plan. That's what I do. And Chase says he's drinking 40 Creek cream coffee and Ash. This is a good morning. 40 Creek is that's a distillery, for those of you who don't know, which is different from a brewery, because a distillery makes hard liquor. Volcano's here and says hello. Nick Nickleby's here. Says good morning from the newest of Mexico's. Morning, Nick. And No Name Game says, question for you about the Middle-earth strategy battle game. How similar is it to the older Middle-earth strategy battle game? Basically the same. We joked about this, I think, in a couple of videos, but the Middle-earth strategy battle game is basically the battle tech of the Games Workshop world. And part of that is because it's a licensed game, they can't go in and change things all the time. They can do like tweaks and FAQs, but they're never going to rewrite the whole core mechanic of the game. The most they usually do is change like sometimes stat lines or equipment loadouts for profiles, but even then, not very much, because all that stuff has to get approved. So it's very rare there's any rules drift in the strategy battle game, and they usually just add new stuff. So if you have like the original Fellowship of the Ring rulebook, the core mechanics are basically the same. The biggest difference would be they've added in like the weapon types. If you're using like an axe or a club, you can do like a stun attack, or you can do a piercing strike. Like all that stuff is slightly different. That's really all I can think of that's like super new. The monstrous rules and stuff, obviously they layered stuff in over time. I think that there's maybe between like that first Fellowship book and the new one, apart from like tons of new profiles and scenarios and stuff like that, there's maybe like a 10% rules drift, and mostly it's just adding new stuff in. Because like in the original 3 rule books, which was Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and Return of the King, they were adding stuff as it kind of came up, right? So like the original rulebook has things for like climbing, jumping, running, because that's what they're doing in Moria. When they get to Isengard, they need rules for like ladders and siege equipment and fighting across parapets and like all that battle stuff. And then when you got to like Return of the King, you need more rules for like monsters like the Mumakil, the Fell Beast, like all that stuff. It kind of like just kind of added a new layer as you went. So if you've got that big blue hardcover Lord of the Rings rulebook, that was like, I think, the compilation of those 3 soft covers, the Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King, then you basically still have the same rulebook. You're not going to be unfamiliar. I think the newest concepts would be things like warbands. So that was fairly new to like the Hobbit and then the Middle Earth SPG, which was that you don't just freeform your army. You have a hero and you have his retinue. So every army is composed of like a hero and his followers. And the classes of heroes, like you've got Legend, Valor, Fortitude, and Minor, can lead different amounts of guys, and then the different heroic actions. It was basically just like heroic move, heroic fight, heroic shoot in the original rulebook, and now there's like 20 different heroic actions you can do, and there's more spells and stuff too. Because it used to be spells were just on like a guy's profile. Now there's a huge like magic list, and guys can have the same spell with different like casting values. So it really is just like a kind of like the newest rulebook that comes in that box is basically it's great because it's all the FAQs, it's everything that like was a core common rule, like heroic actions and spells and stuff all in one place, and it's fully up to date. But like if you're just trying to get you by right now, the core mechanics you'll understand, as long as whatever rulebook you had has like warband building and stuff in it, so you understand that concept, you should be fine. Who else in the chat? Chet Chisholm's here. Hey, Chet. Martin Warburton's here. Gruska says hello from Poland. Epic Die Studio, not to be confused with Epic Duck Studio, says good morning from Gurney, Illinois. And No Name Games says, again, good to know. I saw the scenarios from your videos and it didn't jive with what I remembered, which was more of like a mass battle game, so I was curious. Those were like the 4 learn how to play scenarios from the new 2-player starter set. So it came with a booklet. That booklet had because what's cool about the Middle Earth strategy battle game is you don't have codexes, you just have one like setting book that is the armies of ... So it's either the armies of the Hobbit, because it's that timeline, right? It's like 100 or 80 years or something before the War of the Ring, and then you've got the armies of Lord of the Rings, and it's all the armies from the Lord of the Rings movies and books. And so you don't get that big separate hardcover in the starter set. You get the full hardcover rulebook, which is awesome, but they give you like a little slim book, which is 4 linked scenarios, giving you the historical battles from the Battle of Osgiliath, from basically the orcs led by Gothmog retaking the city. And it starts with like the orcs crossing the Anduin and ambushing like sleeping Gondorians, and then ends with basically the Gondorians trying to escape to warn Denethor and Minas Tirith that there's this insanely huge army about to cross over from Mordor across the Anduin and get into Gondor and like try and destroy the city. So it's a pretty cool I guess tiered learning experience. And what was cool for me from like a how to play point of view was I could roll new rules in each time. So like the first one is just like the core mechanics of the game. Second one adds like heroes and might, will, and fate and like warband building. The third one adds monsters, and the fourth one adds cavalry. And so you actually get a taste of like almost every rule. Apart from magic, you get a taste from every rule in the core mechanics of the game in that box set. And it's introduced in a very cool like add a rule, add a rule, add a rule kind of game, like as you go. So I really liked it. I thought it was great, and hopefully it like stands up for a while as like a useful thing on the internet for people to watch. Chris says, howdy from Nicaragua. Howdy, Chris. Marky A says, afternoon Ash from the UK, just painting up some of the Parabellum Conquest Trolls. It's a great fantasy battle system. Yeah, I want to check out their skirmish game. I've played the fantasy one with Owen. And then Chet says, now working on the new guard box. I got a lot of camo cloaks to sculpt in the near future. Cool. For some first and only. Yeah, I want to paint some of those guys too. I really like the new sculpts for the Khazarkan and for the Cadians. They're very nice. I like that they're very to scale, and I have kind of a plan for what I'm going to do with them too. So I think that that was pretty much my week this week. I got through learning how to podcast. I got through the Lord of the Rings strategy battle game. I started writing again. I started prepping. Oh, and I started prepping a game. Shoot, I forgot to pull it up. But I got sent a bunch of links for a bunch of free, 28 mag rule sets. They're on the 28 mag like website. And I checked one I called Lobster Pot that I want to try out too. I started like pulling models together for that. Epic Die Studio says, interested in Infinity, I listened to your episode 0. Could you give a visual version of what Owen was talking about with the deployment non-rule that you three are all laughing about? Deployment non-rule, the fire team thing. Deployment non-rule, the fire team thing. Okay. So the fire team thing we were talking about with deployment was, we got part of it wrong. I don't think it changed any of our opinions about the part that we got wrong, but basically when you place down a fire team token in Infinity. So in Infinity, a fire team is a collection of guys who all qualify for being part of a fire team. There's charts for every army, and every army can have like maybe 3 to 6 fire team qualified models in it, and they're guys who can activate together. And depending upon the keywords, if they all have the same keyword, they get better bonuses, but everybody gets a basic set of bonuses. The basic one for a 2-man fire team is they all get to move and activate together. The second one is they get to move and activate together, and because they're all covering each other's backs, when they shoot, they get +1 of their burst, extra shot basically. And a 4-man team, they will also get, if they are pure, which means they all have the same keyword, +1 to hit, which is kind of cool at that level. And they also gain 6th Sense, which is because everyone's watching for stuff, they can't be surprised. And then in a 5-man team, they get an additional, if they're pure, additional +2 to hit, +1 if they're not pure, if they're mixed keywords. And they also get a +3 whip bonus to spot stuff, to like look for camo and stuff. So for those of you listening that didn't understand what fire teams are, that's what we're talking about. The new FAQ states that when you place the fire team token, when you're deploying, or if you do any other kind of measurement, so if you check coherency to like put down a mine, or to like just check your coherency basically, or if you roll dice, once you generate, typically there's orders like booty and metachemistry. When you've deployed the miniature and it's in its final position, you roll a d20, and you can gain certain advantages. Like for booty, it's like extra equipment that you found and brought to the battle. For metachemistry, it's like, I don't know, you took your Bioshock thing that you jack yourself up with that makes you tougher, stronger, faster, or whatever. You can't move them afterwards. That's what the ruling says. And we misinterpreted that because we forgot that when you place the fire team token, the first thing you do is you check to see if everyone's in coherency of the where you put the token of the leader. And you're allowed to nudge guys into coherency during that check at deployment. Not during the game. If you do it during the game, they're out. But at deployment, you can nudge them in. And we forgot about the deployment part of that, which means that you can't actually be out of deployment in that fire team at the beginning. But you're still locked in place, basically. Once you've done that measurement, or if you placed a mine, or if you've done anything, you're locked in place and you can no longer move. And the guess, like the assumption kind of is that because it doesn't say anywhere you can't move people after you deploy them, make a roll or measure something, that you can just like infinitely push them around and move them. And honestly, for fire teams and for like even mines and camo markers, that's kind of fine. The only time it really matters is when you roll in those charts and you get like a random crackerjack. Because if you roll a sniper rifle and you've got a guy behind a wall like advanced to play because you wanted to go up and like, I don't know, like midfield sentry with them and like try and peace trade, then you can't just pick him up now and stick him on a building. And it feels like the ruling was to address that, is to address like, oh, I got this really cool thing out of my surprise box, and now I'm going to go use it, and I'm just going to move them around because it doesn't say I can't. But it's also punishing, like, you put down that token or you check to see where your mine is and you can't move them anymore. It just doesn't feel good. Like, it... I get it. I get that all it means is, like, it's like moving your turn marker in Blood Bowl, like, yeah, make sure the last thing you do is place those mines, and the last thing you do is check those coherencies, and then you'll be fine because you're not going to want to move anymore anyway. But it just kind of like unfairly punishes new players who might do it kind of out of sequence or early, because their opponent might now say, oh, sorry, man, you can't move him. Yeah, no, I can definitely see that guy. Yeah, you should have checked. It's the possibility of that scenario coming up that doesn't feel good. Not that the rule's bad, not that it's not going to fix the intended thing of, like, machine guns that were hiding behind walls now suddenly being like a sniper nest, because you don't want to be able to move it afterwards. It just feels like you could have targeted the dice roll ones and left the other ones alone, because I don't feel like you needed to fix the other ones. Like, if I'm not finished deploying, I should be able to nudge my stuff around all I want and keep checking until I'm happy and I'm satisfied, especially if I'm a new player. But all you're doing is you're arming that guy with a way of being like, well, actually, you're not allowed to move that anymore, and he is in line of sight of my tag, and now you're going to have to run into the like, I feel like it just creates the possibility of an unfun scenario that didn't prior exist from people that like to use rules like sledgehammers on new players or in tournaments or whatever. And it's not even during the game. It's before the game even starts. And I just don't like it. I don't like the idea that window is now open for someone to be a dick to someone less experienced or who just, like, did something out of order. Like, it's a gotcha mistake that now is something that is supported by the rules, as opposed to just being like a dick move that you could keep nudging your stuff around and not really care. So that was what we were talking about. That we got hung up on, like, the +3 to hit mods going away, the full fire team thing going away, but that actually wasn't ever even on the menu. It didn't matter. You still couldn't place a prone token afterwards. Like, you still couldn't do a lot of things that fire team afterwards that I feel like you might forget, and it creates that gotcha window again. So if it's in the document and it's designed to keep you from moving your metachemistry or booty model around, it's going to do that. But it also is going to get ignored a whole bunch by most people like myself. So I just feel like if it's an FAQ ruling that's going to get ignored, because if someone asks me if they can move something or place a prone token, I'm be like, yeah, I don't care. The game hasn't started. Do whatever you want. And until you're happy, I don't care. I'm going to walk away and let you deploy. I do not care. Then it doesn't need to be in there. If it's something that most sort of like amiable players who want to win by playing the game and not during deployment aren't going to enforce, then it probably doesn't need to be in the FAQ, and you could just target the things you wanted to target kind of directly. So yeah, that was it. Martin Warburton says, I'm working on Gaslands cars and minis for Stargrave. Wicked. I love Gaslands cars. I love standing around in the toy section looking for things for my kids and then leaving with nothing but stuff for myself. Jake says, good morning from San Diego. Great podcast episode. Hope you guys have a good week. Thank you. We did have a really good week, and I'm really excited for the podcast for this week, for tomorrow. Jonas Kaufman says, good morning, Ash. Happy Sunday. Do you have any impressions of the new War Machine edition? Have you taken a look at it? I have not. Mike's painting it. He's got 2 copies of one of the starter sets, and he's working on them, and we haven't been able to get together because he is in that cycle of parenthood where someone in your family is perpetually sick and they keep giving it back to you. So I haven't seen him in like a month and a half, and he keeps trying to we keep trying to hang out, and then he keeps being like, yeah, I can't breathe out of my left nostril, and I'm coughing up chunks of things that look like you don't want to know. And I don't want that in my life, so he can keep that. Volcano says, when can we expect a Xenos Rampant battle report? The new year, probably, honestly. This is not the best. I work on solo stuff typically over Christmas because not a lot of people come down. This is typically the busiest family time of the year for me and all my friends, and so I tend to just hunker down and focus on me. There's not going to be a lot of new projects during this period because this is when I get to catch up on stuff. Klavik Kazga says, good morning, I'm working on some 3D printed Warmaster. Fun. Mr. Hobbitino says, what are your hopes and predictions for tabletop gaming in 2023? I almost said Mr. Hobbitino, Mr. Bob Hobbitino, Mr. Hobbitino, Mr. Bob. Please, the algorithm, don't come after me. Don't. I love Dell. I'm not trying to rip him off. What are my hopes and predictions for 2023 in tabletop gaming? I'll be honest, the number one thing I would like to have happen in tabletop gaming in 2023 is I would really like for there to be more gatherings and get-togethers happening again of people coming together and sharing their hobby. Like, I know the conventions are kind of back. They were still a little weird in 2022. I just really want them to be like back the way they used to be in 2023. I want to see local people who are excited about a game promoting a game again. Like, there's kind of like a mental block, I think, still, to people being like, hey, check out this indie game I just found out about. Maybe I'll paint 2 armies and go down to the gaming store and teach a bunch of people. That used to be the thing that, like, breathed life into hobby communities. You get these people that were standard bearers, like waving the standard for a game and trying to, like, revitalize an area. That's what I'm trying to do with Infinity right now. I just want to see more of that happen, because I think that we have a lot of games coming and going right now in the industry that are coming and going digitally via, like, crowdfunding or Tabletop Simulator, or, you know, like Kickstarters that like never go to retail. And you need that real life interaction for a game to take hold in the real world. Like it or not, you can do a lot on the internet to promote games, sell games, whatever. I mean, look at me. This is what I do. But having people see and play games in real life and get together and socialize is what makes them have longevity, and it's what pulls them from an idea and a concept into reality. You need to have fun doing things, and it's really hard to quantify that, so we don't tend to focus on it. But I'm hyper aware that games you can play by yourself are great. Hobby stuff is great. That's why miniature painting's never going to go away, because something you do alone, there's no barrier to you taking part in it apart from just finding the time to do it and organizing yourself. Whereas actually playing a game and socializing, there's a bunch of barriers to right now, and I'm hoping those come down, because I want to know who the next junior company soaking up the oxygen is. I want to know whose game is fun. I want to know whose game is, like, really enjoyable and people are having a good time playing in their local game store. I want to see that happening and feel that energy, because it always feeds back online. You see pictures of it being played, you hear events being done, you hear, like, the war stories of, like, what happened in, like, a really good, like, gaming weekend. That I want to feel that happening in 2023. I want to see what companies have a product that isn't just pretty, has great art, has great miniatures, conceptually looks good, you know, functionally the rules work, and you can play them on TTS and you can play them, like, virtually, and it's enjoyable. It's not the same thing as having a really good experience present with people and hanging out and having a beer afterwards and, like, having a good time. So that's my hope. That's what I really want to see happen in the new year. I want to see that come back and feel that, because I physically felt that at HalCon in October, this great convention that was, like, just filled with, like, happy people. And, like, the miniature gaming aspect of HalCon is like 1/20th of HalCon. HalCon's a big Comic-Con convention. But that's, like, but feeling the energy of that kicking off again, and how everyone's like, oh yeah, I miss this. Like, they did tournaments, they had events, and they did a painting contest. Like, Mike Keane ran a really cool painting contest. It fed something in me I didn't realize had been missing for, like, 3 years. And then I left trying to figure out what it was and why I was excited. And then it percolated into, why am I not just doing this for myself? Like, I can go rent a Legion Hall with a bar in it and invite a bunch of people down. Like, you know how to do this. Why aren't you doing this? So, yeah, we'll see. Paul's Paint Shed says, Ash, have you had a game where you've been super enthusiastic for it, knocked Maze and Train, only to find the game mechanics and narrative attachment to the setting is cobblers? I have, for sure. It actually typically comes down to my expectations versus the what happens during the experience of playing the game. And often I have to, like, reset my head and go, wait, you like the miniatures, you like the rules, you played through the game, but who'd you play it with? Did you play it with somebody you normally play with? Did you play it with a stranger at the game store because that's the only person you get to play it with you? Did you teach someone how to play it instead? and I have to go back and like reset my expectations, because typically what's happened is I'll go and play a stranger and the experience won't be what I was expecting, and I'll be disappointed, not because it was bad, but because the picture in my head didn't match the picture of what happened in reality. I remember, so I'll tell you a story about the first time I ever played 40K. So one of the first times I ever played 40K, not against myself, because like many like, you know, kids, basically I was playing against myself. I got top on my best friend's older brother a few times, but like it wasn't like a real full game. He would lose interest and like teach me some core mechanics. We played for like a 45 minutes and I'd be super excited and not really know what I was doing, and then he'd wander off. So I went to a game store. I wandered in with my like 1,000-point Imperial Guard 2nd edition 40K army. And I roll into like the local game store, and I have like meticulously, my 13-year-old brain has like meticulously like looked at every issue of White Dwarf that I'm subscribed to, because that was my parents' big thing. If I wanted to read something, they would always, this is a parenting pro tip, if you ever want like literacy to be a thing in your household, if your kid wants to read something, I don't care what it is, just get it for them. Just give them access to reading. That's why I actually don't mind my kids playing like text-based things like Minecraft or Animal Crossing, because it like hyper pushes their literacy up. I had like a subscription to White Dwarf when I was like 13. I meticulously like painted all my guys to look like the regiments. Like, so what's funny is in 2nd edition 40K, if you have like a box of Cadians and a box of Catachans, you don't have like a regiment. You would just paint them all to look like Catachans or Cadians, and it was all part of one guard army. So my squads were all from like different planets. I had Legion Russ. I think I had a Cadian command squad, a Cadian infantry squad, a Catachan squad. I'm trying to think if I had Mordians. I think my weapon teams were Mordians. I had a Sentinel, like a metal, like Road Trader Sentinel painted up. And of course I had an assassin, because why would you have an assassin in 2nd edition? And I roll into the game store, and they're playing on like a piece of chipboard with like some boxes. There's like some attempts to like make like train out of the how to paint Wargame train book, but they've just like cut blue foam into like hill shapes, and some of it's like glued to card and textured, and some of it's just loose on the table. Some of their miniatures aren't even put together all the way. They're just like put on bases and like falling over. And I look at it and I walk into the game store, and I'm immediately just like, I can feel part of me die, because I'm like, you're not allowed to play like this. What are you guys doing? Like, what? This isn't how this is supposed to be. I didn't even think you could play with unpainted miniatures. I was like, it like, because my expectation is with the pictures I'm seeing in the magazine. Like, there's no internet at this point that has any, you know, GW stuff on it. So I'm looking at pictures of the magazine. I'm like, this is how you do it. This is the reverence everybody feels to playing this game. And so it must be that you have to wait until you've done all the work until you play the game. This is the right way of doing it. And then I walk into the game store, and it's just a bunch of casual hobbyists playing, because they're not letting anything get in the way of them playing the game. They're more interested in the game than they are in the painting the toy soldiers. And like, I felt part of myself die, because I'd done all of this work to like to get to this experience that I thought was going to look like in the magazine. And it's like when Bart holds up like the picture of like Camp Krusty, and the picture of Camp Krusty, it's like there's like rain clouds and thunder, and like the canoe's half sunk in the ground. Like that's literally that's the feel that I had when I walked into that game store. So yeah, it was different. It was very different. Yeah, so that's my feeling that was like that. I think it's my expectation versus what I walk into, and eventually I became friends with those guys and played games, and it was totally fine. So I find the best, if I learn a new game I'm super excited for, the best way I can experience it for the first time usually is to paint 2 armies and teach someone how to play, because then I know I'm gonna get, then the feeling's gonna be right. You know what I mean? I hope. And if that's what you did and you still didn't like it, then I don't know. Like, I just try to manage what I think is going to happen or not. Keep it simple. Chet says, I hate that guy. Every time you say move your booty model around, I laugh. That's fair enough, yeah. I should have said bad chemistry. Michael Melnick says, hey, from Wisconsin. Jonas Common says, oh, well, tell Mike and the family to feel better. Oh, yeah, I mean, it'll happen. It's just timing, right? You have kids. 12 Neve says, just popping in to say howdy. Love the content. Keep the great work. Thanks, dude. Martin Warburton says, starting Gaslands and Stargrave after watching your videos. That's awesome. Great games. Corey says, we need a Christmas buy of Steel Shift 2-player box and terrain bundle. That's not my department. Gotta talk to Austin about that. Brian says, I agree that it's down to the individual to make a scene, something they want to be a part of. Yeah, for sure. John Ashley Smith's here from down in the QEW in Borrington. Also started Gaslands and Stargate because of my videos. That's sweet. Volcano says, I breathed life into a community by introducing Blood Bowl back in 2006. They do leagues there up to this day. That feels so good, doesn't it? Actually, I had friends who did that. The Hogtown Blood Bowl League in Toronto has like changed hands a bunch of times. But my buddy Christian and some of his friends were the ones that like originally kicked it off in like 2006, 2007. And it's the same sort of idea. He's got like this thing that's like outlived him. I think that's a really good feeling when you make something enough fun that people like enjoy it for years later. I think that's a quality like experience and something worthwhile. Jake says, what edition of 40K do you think you had the most fun playing? Honestly, probably 3rd edition 40K. I loved having everything in one book right at the beginning. I think because you could see not just what your stuff did, but what everyone else's stuff did right out of the big black rule book. You had this like, I think really sort of balanced experience. It's almost like a meme now that every new reinvention of 40K is balanced right when it launches, and then slowly like crumbles under the weight of how much shit there is in the game and how many books come out. But early 3rd edition 40K was great. I mean, it's also, and I will make the caveat that everything you play when you have more free time and money than responsibility is going to seem in hindsight better than when you didn't. So I think one of the things that's really key about my experience with that edition of 40K is when 3rd edition 40K came out, I was 18, and it lasted until like 2002 or 3. So like into my early 20s. So like I had a job and disposable income and free time. So I didn't give two shits. Like I just played that game to death. I played whenever I felt like it. So yes. So it's probably also partly my rose-colored glasses. 4th edition 40K was really good too because it introduced universal special rules that cleaned the game up a whole bunch. So 3rd, 4th, because like essentially the 3rd edition rule set goes until 7th, and then 8th edition changes the game. It's basically the same game until then. Chet Chisholm says, my first White Dwarf, and I still have it, had a city fight game between the guard and chaos with zombies. There's a really young version of this dude I know playing that game. Yeah, that's me. That's funny. That's me, Chris Kratz, Bo, and Mike from the Ottawa store playing in a 40K battle report that Dave Taylor and Dirty Steve did all the editing and photography for. So that was one of the first times Dave Taylor and I actually met, I think. It's like 2003. Oh my God, that's like almost 20 years ago. I've known Dave Taylor for almost 20 years. That's crazy. Yeah, it's a long time ago. Proven22 says VCR tapes were the best train pieces for sure. They're not wrong. They were definitely available and handy back then too. John Ashley Smith says, I last played 40K in 3rd edition and was planning to play 8th when it came out, but never got a game in before the edition changed to 9th. I played too slow. Yeah, I mean, that is a thing for sure. I think, again, it's about managing your expectation. You don't have to play like a full 2,000 point game to try the game out. If you get like a 500 point like army done, I think you're just as capable of experiencing the game as if you play like a huge 2,000 point game. Frozen Throg says, the spectacle of the whole thing is a big part for me, so the feeling's understandable. Definitely. Like, I think that is an underappreciated element of the hobby, because you have people who aren't like, if you picked up one of their miniatures out of their horde of like finished projects, the paint job is okay. Like, it's a functional kind of like workman like paint job. But when you see the presentation of what they've finished on the table, it is spectacular. Like this incredibly impressive thing. It's kind of like going to Warhammer World. If you go to Warhammer World and you look at their giant installations, those individual miniatures are not super well painted. But when you see hundreds of them and thousands of them across these massive displays, it elicits a feeling, right? It's that romanticism of the whole thing versus these like very perfect individual model paint jobs. And I much prefer that feeling than the hyper fixation on one like really beautiful miniature. It's hard to appreciate one really beautiful miniature in a sea of like finished miniatures. And so for me, it's about trying to catch a snapshot of the world, not one individual. And that's my favorite. I've said this before, but that's my favorite part about learning a new game is getting all the terrain ready, painting 2 armies, putting it on the table. And the first time I get to have that like it's all done. Like you got it all laid out in front of you, and even if it's a skirmish game and it's like on like a 2-foot table, you've got this like moment of like satisfaction that the project's complete. I that's the thing I'm always chasing. I love that feeling more than anything else. Jonas Kaufman says, my descent into bitterness and rage. I mean, it was more that like the only thing I had to go by was pictures in the magazine. I thought when you look at a picture of a battle report in a 1990s White Dwarf, you feel like this was like, because it's always presented as like, well, that's what the game's supposed to look like, and it's all even pictures of people playing in their homes. You know what I mean? Like the pictures in Rogue Trader are like Rick Priestley in like a living room playing on like a finished table with like terrain, and it's all nice. Like it's not perfect. It's all homemade terrain, but they're playing on a table with painted miniatures and like having this like cool afternoon. And so like your 13-year-old brain absorbs that and goes like, well, that's what you're supposed to do. And then you walk in, and again, it's the real life Camp Krusty. It's not the same at all. So yes, I felt it was a growing up moment for me, definitely, where I was like, oh, people can just phone it in, I guess. I understand better now what that actually means. CB says, painting 2 heavy gear armies to get started at a local club is my plan. Taking me over a year to get around to doing it, but I've got 2 basic armies and a lot of training almost ready. That's perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. And then you get to have the experience you want. You just find yourself someone that's excited to learn, and you're good to go. Andy Meechan says, we were thrown down with War Master last week, and I employed your apply violence catchphrase from a while back. The Dragon Ogres for sure rolled better. Definitely, yeah. If you just apply violence and choose violence, then you'll be almost always your luck and odds of the dice will go up. I feel like it's about the spirit of how you approach rolling the dice that tells the dice what you need, and the universe just provides it typically. But you can't overdo it, because then the universe will immediately provide you with comeuppance and disappointment. Michael Martel says, Ash, definitely a big Mordheim movement, currently getting a lot of exposure with the old world eventually coming back. Could you see GW officially bringing it back the way they did Necromunda? Yeah, of course they will. Yeah, definitely. If that's not already like being worked on, it's on a list somewhere. They brought back squats, right? Like there is no nostalgia mine they won't go to, and I feel like Mordheim is so beloved, there's almost no way they wouldn't at some point go back to it. A spiritual successor to Mordheim, maybe, but I think they'll just straight up bring back Mordheim. With the technology today, oh my god, you could do such an incredible game. Like you could do such an incredible box set for Mordheim today with what's available. Like having just built those Osgiliath ruins, you could make such cool Tudor style buildings in that format with like half roofs and stuff like that. Oh my god, it would be amazing. Yeah, you absolutely could. I don't know why they wouldn't. Like, there's nothing but upside. You know what I mean? So, yes, I absolutely believe they will, and it's just a matter of time. So, yeah, I think you'll see all kinds of stuff like that come out soon. Because we have a new year coming, and that means that there's going to be a new lease on what Games Workshop I think starts to like drill into as far as like the nostalgia stuff. Because there's almost as many books for Necromunda as there's for 40k. Like it's a proven concept. You can take a game like that and take it all kinds of different places and have a great time with it, and people will buy it. John Ashley Smith says, I liked 3rd edition 40k initially, but not initially. I'd started playing 2nd. Yeah, I had friends who left because it wasn't as character driven as 2nd edition was, and it felt more like a war game. There was a real tonal shift to it, right? And I think that pushed some people off. Because even from like Rogue Trader to 2nd edition, people kind of fell off with it becoming more of like a mass combat game, and then 2nd and 3rd, I think the same thing happened. You had like a drop off of people that loved their powerful unit, they loved their like super powered character that kind of like embodied, it was their avatar in the game, right? Jake says 3rd edition was the first edition I played as well. Very fond memories of playing in my parents' garage with my friends, definitely. Paul Spain says, with the end of this year fast approaching, have you any seeds of 2023 projects bouncing around your head? I mean, yeah, I just started working on one. Yeah, my little black notebooks of ideas I'm sketching. I want to do, I have a bunch of things I'm going to do just for me. January is my just for me month usually. I'm going to work on some projects that I'm excited about. I'm going to try and get to hang out with friends I haven't seen in a while, because like real life commitments of like family and friends and stuff, or not family, but family and like the holidays and stuff will have died down. So a bunch of things I want to do. January is also going to be Tactical Awareness Winter War, which means I have an event I'm going to run. And then if I run a quarterly Infinity event, there's nothing stopping me from running events for other games too. It's about getting the format done. So I was thinking about a bunch of different ideas. I was thinking about bringing back the 40K Classic, which was like an idea I had a long time ago of doing like a 40K event that doesn't feel like a current 40K event, and running like a tournament and scenario pack for it, and playing like basically using all today's like miniatures and rules, and but doing 1,000-point armies and playing like old school style missions. So taking like the classic 40K mission pack and writing missions based on that, and using that scoring system and stuff too, and just using the current rules, but then using like no stratagems, like just getting rid of basically. You could use the core stratagems from the rulebook, but then just get rid of the rest of it. So no like secondary objectives, nothing, and just see what happens. Like people did some balance, but like who cares? I remember patrols, and you just use the rules in the rulebook, because the patrol is basically just like the old 40K chart. You know what I mean? And just play games and see what happens, and play like a classic 40K like tournament. And have like a best painted prize, and have like an army display like an army tray like do like all the original like GT scoring for tournaments, and like go back to basics. I was thinking about doing that too, so we'll see what happens. What else is here? Your point about how our lives, Jonas Kaufman says, your point about how our lives are impacting how we react to games is very well taken. It's why I have such an affection for War Machine up to about Legends. Yeah, well, exactly. Because if you play a game at a certain point in your life, it's why I remember Confrontation so fondly, right? It was literally just me and Christian hanging out in each other's apartments, eating pizza, watching old wrestling tapes, and painting miniatures, making terrain, and playing a game that you could play on like a 2x4 board, right? It was this teeny little board, so we could play it anywhere, which was a novel idea at the time. Like, you needed a 6x4 board to play 40K. So, like, it was amazing. We could play this really cool sort of like bespoke setup on our coffee tables. Ekenrock, will you ever play any more Core Space in your channel? And are you looking forward to Malatum? I haven't seen Malatum, and there's a very good possibility I'll play anything. I just need people to come play it with me. It's more about having opponents than anything else, right? Like, I'm not... Anytime, I'll say this into infinity, anytime you don't see a game being played for a while, it's not because I don't want to play it. It's because I don't have an opponent. I've really paid it for Core Space. There's nothing stopping me from playing it except for having people come in and play. Annie Meechan says again, Universal Comeuppance. My War Master Chaos Armor saves are comical. The Chaos Gods are fickle, as we both know. John Ashley Smith says, I wish I could find a retail location that sells DP9 stuff. DreamPod 9, that's heavy gear. I used to get it at Bayshore Hobbies in Hamilton before they closed. Yeah, I mean, that's the problem with a company that's had to like liquidate a few times and been through like a few iterations of retail. Retailers and distributors are real nervous about picking them up. So it's probably not going to be the case that you can find it online unless the person that owns that game store is like a hardcore DreamPod 9 fan. Probably going to be online stores. Chet Chisholm says, Mordheim coming back has me as excited as new Imperial Guard stuff. It's my favorite game of all time. That's you're not alone. There are a ton of people. Again, it was Millennial Madness. Mordheim was one of my games I actually like ran a campaign for in a Games Workshop store before I worked for Games Workshop. So I was that excited about it. I love Mordheim. I wrote a rule set for Mordheimers. Oh man, I wonder if I can still find that. I wrote a warband that I submitted to the Citadel Journal for Mordheimers. I wonder if it's still floating around somewhere. It was basically like, why is there no representation of the people that actually live in this city? Why are they all from somewhere else? So I made Mordheimers a warband, and it was basically led by like a madman. It had orphans. It was a madman, orphans. It was like the Doom Speaker was like the lead. It was like, what if Flagellants led a warband, basically. And the idea is that most of them get like caught up in the Sisters of Sigmar's like warbands, but what if like one of these warbands was just roaming the city, basically? And it was just like regular Joes. So like they kind of sucked, but the fact that they were like driven crazy by the Warp Stone stuff was like their superpower. I converted miniatures for it, took pictures, I sent to Citadel Journal. They never published it, but it was like towards the dying times of Citadel Journal anyway. I think the journal, I probably sent it in like 2000, sorry. Or like 2001, because 99 was when the game came out. So I probably sent it in like 2001, 2000 before I started working for Games Workshop. And the journal was like already almost on its way out. So they didn't publish it, but that probably had less to do with the article than more to do with the fact that the journal was no longer being done. CB says, oh, they're talking to each other about where to get heavy gear. Never mind. Tai Matsushita says, I've been playing building a 40k group and struggling to get new players to have a strong army that feels positively in the game without having the competitive 40k meta stuff bleed in. Any advice? Stop playing the competitive 40k meta. I mean, that's my plan. You just heard me talk about like what am I gonna if I wanted to paint 40k miniatures, which I do. I want to build and paint 40k armies, but I don't want to play 40k right now. Because all of that competitive 40k stuff, meta stuff, has bled into the game, right? The secondary objectives, like all that ITC stuff, has like leached and been imported into the core game mechanic now, and I'm incredibly uninterested in that involved of a like scoring set and that much of like. It feels like you're trying to play. It feels like you're trying to like mechanically process. Like a sports game almost, or like a Twilight Imperium style board game in a war game that should be about like what you're doing on the table. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm super not interested in it. And the only advice I'm giving myself right now is just to break the mold, just to like write my own what you play for part of the game. Because I think the game mechanically is fine. The army lists are fine. I don't actually really give a shit about the army list, to be honest with you. I don't mind using point values and stuff like that. I don't think the problem is the game. I feel like the problem is how it's being played, if that makes sense. I feel like how it's being played is like the fact that it would lead to things like button pusher units, you know what I mean? Like grot or guys with jump packs or grots, like that would hide in zones and push 1, push 2, push 3 to get your secondary objectives. Like, try and think, like, what is that group doing? Like, tell me what they're doing in the lore right now. There are a bunch of grots that get told to go extract Knockman data. Orcs wouldn't do that. The grots aren't trusted with any of that stuff. Grots run out in front of things, and they carry heavy shit. They carry your gun for you. You don't trust grots to go do a job. You trust your dumbest orc to go do it, because he's not going to betray you later on. So, like, I think that's my problem, is, like, the cognitive dissonance between the back, like the being able to visualize what's happening and then the mechanical like processing of like playing out the game it's starting to weigh on me. And maybe that's what you're talking about, that like 40k meta stuff getting imported. So I'm just gonna stop playing the game like that. I'm just gonna use the game. I'm gonna play the game exactly with the game rules and stuff like that, but just change what it's played for. Like, don't use secondaries, don't use stratagems if you don't want. I mean, you can if you want. I guess it doesn't really matter. I guess you keep the stratagems. Like, you don't have to not use them. Just take out the secondaries. You don't need them, and play a different version of like write your own scenarios. And the problem with that is if you're trying to get a group going, it's just not going to work. Like, it would work for an event, like a one-off event. It won't work for a group probably. Like, I'm giving you bad advice right now because they want to be able to casually meet some stranger and play games. So maybe run a crusade event. Maybe run, like, if you want to be able to rely on the source material of Games Workshop's books, then run a crusade. They're fun. Do a crusade league where you're like earning campaign points. Try that. It might change people's opinions about how to play the competitive meta because you're using power. All of a sudden you're playing with agendas, which are very different from secondaries, because you're trying to complete objectives that earn you like the renown and stuff to get like new cool rules and stuff. I don't know. I feel like I give bad advice about this because, one, it won't work to like try and get a bunch of strangers to play each other because you need to rely on what Games Workshop's printing. And two, I'm very like willing to just blow up a game and be like, nope, I'm gonna write my own shit. And not everyone's willing to adopt that. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I could run an event like that because there's enough people, enough of my friends are like me that would be like, yeah, sure, let's go, let's do it. It's not a big model ask, and it'd be fun, and we're really just here to drink beer and hang out for the weekend. So yeah, we'll entertain whatever stupid thing you've come up with, Ash, right? Like, my ability to like bully people into playing the way I want them to play will probably be enough. I just don't feel like that's great advice for you, though. You probably need something better than that. So yeah, I'm sorry, that's not great advice. Andy Meechan says, actual question though, with a Warcry being unadulterated fun to play, it's true, and having 4+ campaign variants already, you think there's space for a Mordheim relaunch? Definitely, yeah. It's if there's space for Kill Team and Necromunda, there's space for Mordheim and Warcry. It's because it's not a big model ask. You know what I mean? Games Workshop has that, like, I feel like that would have been and Andy, I think you and I've worked in miniature wargaming, so you understand that like production time is a concern and catalog space is a concern. I don't think that the way that digital sculpting works and Games Workshop's capacity to produce stuff now, that's even like the barrier that I think it is in my head. You know what I mean? Like it still is for people who have to like get stuff spin cast and are out in the kind of the wilds of miniature wargaming. But for Games Workshop, they could run 50 kits and barely feel it. Right, like over the course of like 5 years, they could run 10 kits a year, and it would just like slide to their production schedule and be no problem. Like they're making kits for like weird vehicles for Necromunda now that aren't ever going to get used in 40k, and they're enormous. You know what I mean? Like they're Hekaton Land Fortress size. Like it's madness that they're making these kits, and just slide them in the production schedule. And like the amount of terrain they make too, where it's like you need another plasma reactor-y thing. Like they'll do single prints and stuff. So I think there's very little risk to them doing Mordheim, and it'll pay off actually not in sales of Mordheim miniatures. It'll pay off in the fact that it generates goodwill from people who may not be currently buying Games Workshop products because they love Mordheim. And they come back and they buy a bunch of miniatures and they play the game and they try it out and they give it a shot. And they say the original version was better or not or whatever, you know what I mean? And maybe they come back and buy the GW products then too. They get back in the ecosystem, I guess. I don't think there's any risk for them doing it. I think there's tons of room. Time Out Cheetah says this back to basics event is exactly what I'm thinking for when I host a larger event. Go for it. I hope it's better advice than I think it is. I just know I can bully people. I can bully 10 people to play 40k like that with me. That's all. And Emission then says, and what would a Mordheim relaunch bring that Warcry doesn't? I think it would just bring a setting and a return to the old world. So like, I actually think that matters more than we think it does to some people, because you could play, like you can always write your own rules for stuff. You could always just play Warcry, but Warcry is like an arena battler. Warcry doesn't, it's got better campaign rules now than it did, but it doesn't have that sense like you're in a place doing stuff, and they keep hopping locations. Like it was in the 8 points, now it's in Gnarlwood. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's great for what it is, and I'm really enjoying it, and I love it. There's a better campaign system now, but at the same time, in Mordheim, you felt what every guy had in his hands. You know what I mean? Because every weapon had like a different way of attacking. Like you got to customize literally everything in your warband, and I feel like there's a place for that, and there's like a love of that in miniature wargaming, because it comes back to that fascination with like creating your toy soldiers in that way. Now, the one thing I will say about Mordheim is that they do redo it. They need to make it more modular because people love tinkering. You hear me, designers? Don't make single build miniatures for Mordheim. Just don't do it. Make shit you can convert. Don't let us not put our stuff together a million ways. We need some posability. Figure it out. You did it with the guardsmen. You can do it for this. What's next? Altro's Sonar says, have you looked into 5 parsecs and leagues? If so, what's your opinion on them? I have a copy. I just got my copy of 5 leagues from the Borderlands, and I'm super excited about it. So you'll hear that when I do the review. Sebastian Miller says, what's your favorite bot war faction? I'm a huge Atlantic and Drone Army fan. I really like the Valiants. I don't know. I'm just a sucker for good guys. Adam Mack, he said, I missed Mordheim the first time. I'd love to see it with modern tech like you said. Yeah, I think so too. No Name Game says, wanting to play 40k but not play 40k. Have you thought about just playing a previous edition? I mean, I literally did that this year. Chris and I have been working our way through the 40k editions. If you go back in my videos, you can watch me play 40k second edition and Rogue Trader. And we loved it. We had such a good time. Moses, oh my gosh, thanks for the super chat. Ash, love your content. You've introduced me to some great games. So grateful to have found your channel, and I'm sorry to ask, as I always do, but Blackstone Fortress? What have I not done? I haven't done this. I haven't done the Zote one, because I know I haven't painted my Zote, and I haven't done, is it Ascension? Is the one with the giant drones? Yeah, I should come back to Blackstone Fortress. I should finish, because it's only got a couple miniatures I haven't painted, I think, for it. Was Ascension before or after Escalation, though? Because I killed Malice again with Escalation. I think Ascension is the final one. Yeah, I'll come back to it. I'll come back to it in the new year. Now that the Cursed City story is done, and I know I'm not going to get to play like a bunch of little Cursed City expansions in the future, and I finished the first Cursed City one, I honestly don't have like the energy right now to do the Cursed City thing, because I'll be honest, I'm not super excited about the miniatures that I'm required to play the first expansion, and I've looked at the expansions and I kind of get what the story's going to now, so like I feel like it was like if I gotten to play 3 missions of like episodic content, I would have enjoyed it more. So maybe maybe it's a good idea. Maybe it's a good time to come back around and finish Blackstone Fortress, because I did a ton of Blackstone Fortress and it was a great game, and it'll get me excited for whatever. I'm really hoping that the team that's doing Warhammer Quest is onto something new, and they just tied this up so they can move on and start a new thing. Like, that'd be amazing. So yes, I should do something like that. And thank you again for the super chat. CB says, I've been getting back into 40k in the past year after 15 years away, and my vision of it is still scenario based. I don't get a competitive dice game. OPR offers a good enough framework for that for me. Fair enough. Lots of people saying that the way 40k is playing right now is the way they went to something lighter like Grimdark Future. Yeah, I could see that. Adam Huggy says, I feel you on the gameplay versus theme stuff. Yeah, it's hard. I struggle with that, and I never know what's wrong at the time. It's later on when I think about the experience that I'm like, they never would have done, like, Space Marines wouldn't act like that. Space Marines wouldn't do this, do that. Like, it like melts my brain a little bit. Paul's Paint Sheds picked up the new squats for Xenos Rampant. Couldn't care less about the game of 40k anymore, but I still love the lore. Yeah, and I think, I mean, that's the thing. Like, there's so many people that, like, doom and gloom 40k, or like say that third-party miniatures are killing 40k, or, you know, you shouldn't do this or that for 40k. People still buy 40k miniatures, don't play 40k. Like, people who like miniature war games will buy a cool miniature, and for every person that wants to, like, you know, sort of like scream hyperbole on the internet, and there's a lot of them, and or even like I think it's actually more insidious when it's like a subtle rationalization of hyperbole on the internet, because there's a lot of that too. It's sort of that very dogmatic view, but with very sort of like rational explanations as to why they have that view. Those tend to become more concrete and like cement. I don't think it's backed up in real life. I think if you if a lot of that stuff was backed up in real life, then Games Workshop, I mean, their share price could go down for the next 5 years. They'd still be making money. So they're still good. They're still paying all the bills. They're still in a profit. So yeah, as long as they're still above the line, and they're well above the line, I think it's just, it doesn't, anytime you hear the words kill 40k, slay 40k, whatever, it's all just about cycles. It's about the cycle of like, when does the 40k design cycle repeat, or the product mix cycle repeat, or, you know, what you saw happen when they just Sigmar happen. Like, it's never about like a threat to the company. Man, they make so much money just licensing their IP now. I'm addicted to that combat cards game. Oh my god. It's some free, they actually it's funny because they actually sent me an email being like, hey, would you like to do part of our partner, blah blah blah, like whatever it is that they say. I love this game. I'm addicted to it. I started playing with, oh my god, apparently I have a game on the go. I didn't realize. Cancel my battle, reconnecting. You know, I had a game on the go and I must have like paused my phone, but like, I'm addicted to this thing. I'm not like that deep into it right now, but like, I loved combat cards as a kid. Yeah, I'm not in any way, I didn't answer the email. I just happened to download the app because there's a link to it, and I started noodling around on it. I probably should do some content because I've been playing it obsessively for like a week now. But where was I going with this? Oh yeah, they make so much money off their IP now that there's no like there's no existential threat to Games Workshop, because they can just license games like this. And I know I haven't spent a dime on it, but I'm sure somebody spent the $11.99 to get 3,000 plasma so they can unlock all their cards. I'm willing to grind this in the bathroom for the next like 2 weeks instead, get what I want. And it actually has really good game design. That's the best part, is it actually is like a really fun little card-based combat game. Volcano says, I've never seen anybody blow up a bridge in 40k. Instead, they loiter around a square circle or score points. Don't tell Eisenhower that. It's true. It's so true. I've never seen anybody. Yeah, you've never seen anybody do any like actual war stuff in 40k. I've seen more actual war stuff happen in a game of Marvel Crisis Protocol, where they start throwing trucks and buildings at each other and the table's all leveled at the end of the game, than I have in actual 40k. I've seen more of that in Bot War, where people shoot the buildings out from underneath me and blow stuff up. Yeah, you're right. That's an interesting point. Adam Mackey says, I'd love to see you guys play Reality's Edge at some point. You did sold the game for me. Yeah, Jay and I'd plan on playing it for a while. The problem is like Jay, Chase, Mike, Owen when he's back in town. You know what I mean? Like it all comes down to, there's like, let's say there's a dozen of us that like these kinds of games, and we all get together 6 times a year individually. I get to play that many games of whatever. So it's not that it's not will or desire. It's just the reality of it. Frozen Dog says, yeah, going for older editions could work too. Might be easier if you have a club environment though. Yeah, I want to do the 3rd edition project at some point this year too. That's on the list. GW said, or Jay's in the chat. Hey Jay, the GW Minute is the current best endorsement for playing indie games. Oh my god, Jay, you're being the guy that you would have kicked out of one of your stores 10 years ago. Don't do that. Oh geez, it's 15 years ago now. Amnesia Smith says, hey Ash, I love your content. Do you have any plans to do any fantasy ship or naval games? I'd love to see you play Dystopian Wars, Mantic's Armada, Manowar, etc. I really want to get back to Manowar at some point. Actually, Andrew Sinclair, who's a buddy of Jay's and mine, has I think a complete collection of Manowar. I should see if I can get him to bring it in and we could just play. That'd be super fun. If you're listening, or Jay or Andrew, just bring in your Manowar. I'll totally play. Andy Meechan says, spot on response, Phil. I agree on the setting comments in particular. In terms of production, GW's release schedule for yesterday alone was larger than any companies could do in 3 to 6 months. It's crazy big. Yeah, that's it. Like, appreciating the manufacturing scale, and like what an incredible endorsement for the planning that happened like 15 years ago. You know what I mean? When they were investing in 3D printing before anybody even had it on their radar. And now, and like that 3D design, and when they were scooping up in like 2007, when they were scooping up digital sculptors out of the video game industry that was shedding staff because it was way overpopulated and too many kids had gone to school for 3D design, and then teaching them how to sculpt the GW way and figuring out what that technology looked like what a being ahead of the curve investment that was for them that allows them to do that today. I think that doesn't get like sung enough. We're like, oh yeah, of course everybody uses 3D sculpting. Man, they were doing it. They were investing in technology like that before anybody else, and that's why they're able to do what they do today. Chet Chisholm says, "Dear GW, keep bringing Mordheim back, and keep it punk rock. Keep it punk rock. Love chat. Yeah, as long as they get John Blanche to get back into the artwork, I really hope they can find Alex Boyd to come do it too, because Alex Boyd did a lot of the black and white artwork, which is incredible in that game. Yeah, as long as John's involved in some way or like consulted on some way in the art design direction. Although I feel like there's enough people in like that hashtag 28 world now that get that aesthetic that it would be like a love letter to John and those guys and Thomas probably instead, that I think you could probably keep that mechanic. Honestly, Curse City feels like that too, right? You just needed to like harness that gritty, dark kind of stuff. Ekenrock, I sometimes I don't know which parts of the word I'm supposed to pronounce. I'd also love to see more Blackstone Fortress. I agree. Warcry just feels like a competitive game with a campaign strapped on. Mordheim was all about the campaign and loved it because of that. It is. It's an arena battler. Like, it's an arena battle game, and they've done a better job of reflecting the campaign in that and making it so that those two things can coexist in the latest edition. But I was right with you for the first edition of the game. Red Leg Jim, Red Leg JGM. I'm not a GW fan, but I enjoyed your Blackstone Fortress content. Yeah, me too. It was just a fun, like, dungeon explorer. It had warts. Like, I didn't like the grind sometimes, but I enjoyed the actual game. Underscore says you should do a Let's Talk comparing what works better and not as good for the different versions of Warhammer Quest. It's an interesting topic. Yeah, maybe we can do like a podcasty thing about it. Wargame Ramble says it's hard not to profit when you're selling your products at a 200% markup. I mean, it's not a markup. It's what you decide to sell your products for. You can set the profit line at whatever you want for products, and if you're the one making them, that's up to you if people buy them or not. Like, there's a big markup on Apple products too, and yet I'm still sitting here with an iPhone, right? Like, I have an iPhone in my pocket. It's not an essential product. I could have a cheap whatever phone if I wanted to, but I want the higher end thing that I feel gives me the experience I want. So again, criticizing someone for their MSRP, I mean, they also have hundreds and thousands of people working for them across the world in thankless jobs every day, standing around teaching kids how to play and paint their first toy soldiers. And not every Games Workshop's created equal. Like, not every Games Workshop store is created equal, but I think the miniature wargaming industry as a whole would not be growing, and all the indie companies that we love would not have the opportunity to find customers that they have without the fact that part of that 200%, not markup, but MSRP at cost is paying the paycheck of that, 20-something person right out of high school that's teaching kids how to paint their first Space Marine. Because it's not just the sales coming out of that store that are paying that guy's salary, it's other stuff too. Actually, it is the sales coming out of that store. It's the fact that there's an MSRP that it has that lets them lease that property and sell those games and open stores in places you don't normally have stores and expand to new places and bring miniature wargaming everywhere. So, yeah, you can be cynical. It's not a markup, though. It's what they're pricing their product at. And a markup is when a retailer takes the product and marks it up. I explained this last time. It's why a liter of Tide in Nunavut costs $57, whereas I can get it for $7.99 here. That's a markup. That's selling something over MSRP because of all the reasons it takes, because you have to fly stuff into Nunavut. So I'm not criticizing the fact that it costs $57, but that guy needs to make some money. Also, they had to get Tide to Nunavut, so it costs that much. They mark it up. Harry says, morning, Ash. So I'm going to get my first game in a 40K in many years. My Black Templars versus Squats, and that's what I'm calling them. Yes, you should definitely call them Squat. Call them what you want to call them. Wargaming Ramble says, I watched your Cursed City Nemesis review. I wonder what's next for Warhammer Quest to return to 40K. I hope so. I mean, I think it would be cool if they did Dark Tide too. So it just says, yeah, I was just thinking about that. Something in that kind of vein. You know what I mean? Like something a little more punk rock. I think what I liked the most about the heroes in Cursed City is a lot of them felt like anti-heroes. They didn't feel like good guys necessarily. They felt like a bunch of rogues and cutthroats that had been forced together by circumstance to be heroes. You know what I mean? Like, it felt more Guardians of the Galaxy. I thought that was good. So I would like to see it be like a return to that. And then, have you been getting any of the new Hero Quest stuff? I do have the new box of Hero Quest. I love they're continuing to release character packs expansions. I do want to run that, but I want to paint the new miniatures too. That's a big ask. It's a lot of models. Tim Edwards says John Blanche is retired now. Yeah, but I mean, people retire and come back and work on projects. So it doesn't mean, even if he's retired, it doesn't mean he might not take a look at some artwork somebody did. I think he has a soft spot for that stuff too. And then Dark Commission says, hi, is there a booklet or app available for solo Blood Bowl play? I have the Orc and Human box, but have never played a single game. No, but you could get the video game. It's literally just the board game. And what you could do is you could fire up the video game and you could put the board next to it, and then you could just let the Orc AI play and move the miniatures around. That's about the only way I could think about doing it that I can think of, is there's an AI player in Blood Bowl for that. Oh my god, we're at 72 minutes. Holy crap. I just realized I've been talking for more than an hour. Remember what I said earlier about when my mouth gets going and I start talking? Apparently that's been happening for 12 minutes longer than I intended to, and my kids are probably hungry. So I'm going to take one more question and then I'm going to sign off. All right, Paul's Paint Job says, job done, cheers, coffee time, awesome. Proven says Aliens is my favorite game video. I really like the Aliens one too. And then John says, if you want to rock and roll, you got to pay the toll. It's true. Andy says, money's a funny thing. GW pretty much spends most of their studio costs that any other company makes gross. That's true. Like their top line income. Absolutely. It's a big, giant company. All right, so we go. We did an hour and 12 minutes. So what's coming up next week? Obviously, part 4 of the How to Play Middle-Earth Strategy Battle games coming out. We've got Tactical Awareness Season 1, Episode 1 with some actual structure to it coming out tomorrow. So look forward to that. I'm really excited. I think we did a really good job on it. I'm really excited about that actually too. I think we're making something useful and that can be called back to, which I think is going to be fun. And then we're only 7 spots left for Winter War. So for the January Infinity Tournament, we're at 14 out of 20 spots. And I have to do some arts and crafts, man. I gotta go find a buddy with a contractor card to buy me tabletopper materials, because I need to make a whole bunch of tabletoppers to go in to put 4x4 mats on. I gotta buy some. I want to get like the kit done for this, because then I can repeat it. Right, once it's all done for the first one, I'll spend a bunch of my own money on this, but it'll be okay, and we'll be able to run other events too. Because if I make 4-foot tabletoppers for Infinity, we can also play 40k Classic on it. We could play any number of like Kill Team, Blood Bowl, whatever games, things besides Infinity, and I'll have invested in something that will let me run more events in the future. That's coming up next week. I hope you guys enjoy it. I'll see you next Sunday for a Saturday chat show. Then a mash. Have a Wargaming.